China finally receives a top-tier SAM with the addition of the Tor M-1 in Update Fire and Ice. This Russian SAM helps fill a gap that the Chinese top-tier ground lineup has had since its introduction. This is definitely a vehicle I've been looking forward to for a long time, so let's dive in and see what this SAM has to offer. Development of the Tor missile system began in 1975 as a replacement for the OSA system in the short-range, medium-altitude air defense role. A naval version named the Kinzel would also be developed in parallel to the ground-based system to act as a point defense system for the upcoming Kirov-class cruisers. NATO would designate the Tor as the SA-15 Gauntlet. The system was designed from the outset to be able to detect, track, and engage precision-guided The system was designed from the outset to be able to detect, track, and engage precision-guided munitions like cruise missiles, smart bombs, and other standoff weapons. To accomplish this, the designers would incorporate a passive electronically scanned array radar, a digital fire control system to help with processing the radar data and prioritizing targets, and they would incorporate vertically launched missiles to improve reaction time and the available ready-use ammunition. Development would take over a decade to complete, with testing taking place between 1983 and 1984, with the first production vehicles reaching operational units in 1986. The first major upgrade to the system would be introduced in 1991 and designated the Tor M-1. This upgrade featured a brand new 9M331 missile that improved the probability of kill with a single missile against a fixed-wing aircraft from around 25 to 75% to 45 to 80% depending on the aircraft's altitude. The chassis of the launcher was also swapped to the GM5955. A second fire control channel was added that facilitated the launch and guidance of two missiles simultaneously at the same or two separate targets. This is the version that would be exported to China. In total, China would import 35 units between 1997 and 2000. China would make an offer for licensed production of the Tor M-1 after the last shipment, but Russia would refuse that. So China did what they do best and reverse engineered the system. They would also add some of their own unique upgrades to the system, and they would designate this the HQ-17. This local variant would enter service in 2015 and is still currently serving the Chinese armed forces today. In-game, China gets access to one of the imported Tor M-1 systems. It is equipped with two radars. On the top you have the more traditional search radar dish. It rotates a full 360 degrees around and can be set to scan either 12, 24, or 32 degrees vertically. Those settings correspond to either a 1, 2, or 3 bar search. So when using the 32-degree setting, it'll take the radar 3 full rotations to update a target's position. If you're wondering what the second dish on top of this radar is for, that is the IFF antenna. The second radar can be found on the front of the turret, and it is used for tracking targets. This is the first phased array radar in-game. Instead of using the traditional radar dish configuration with a single large antenna, a phased array system relies on a grid of antennas to transmit and receive the radar signals. The array is controlled by a computer and can be steered without having to physically move the radar dish. This allows for better focusing and quicker refresh rates. Both radars have two range settings of 6 and 19 miles. You will also get an IRST system. This will allow you to engage targets without alerting their RWR. The camera has a pretty good zoom, going from ×8 to ×18. While the new phased array radar is interesting, the SA-15 brings two new features to SAM gameplay at top tier. The first is multiple guidance modes, while the second is the ability to target multiple aircraft at the same time. Starting with the multi-engagement modes, the SA-15 gets access to 3 separate guidance modes. The first is the line of sight mode. This will be familiar to anyone that has played any other SAMs or ATGM launchers for that matter. In this mode, the missile will fly where you point your crosshair. The second mode is called the half-straightening mode. This is a brand new guidance mode that will lead the missile halfway between the target's current location and the predicted intercept point. This mode allows the missile to have a smoother trajectory, thus reducing the maximum G overload needed to hit the target, which is a pretty important feature to have as the 9M331 doesn't have the best maximum overload. To use this mode, you must have a radar lock on the target. If you lose the lock after firing the missile, it will switch to the line of sight mode. The final guidance mode you have is the automatic mode, which will select the best guidance mode between the previous two options based on the target's parameters. You can switch between the three using the Switch Missile Targeting Lead method keybind. Default, this should be set to Alt+L. The second new feature is the ability to engage multiple targets at the same time. This allows you to launch and guide two separate missiles at two separate targets as long as they are within 15 degrees of each other. It's pretty simple to do this. Simply lock on and fire at the first target, then swap to the second target using the Select Radar IRST Target to Lock On keybind and fire the second missile. Both will then go on their way tracking their own targets until they intercept them. Since the two targets have to remain within a 15-degree arc, this is best used against targets at longer range. Say, for an example, when you have two drones spawn at the same time. While this is a nice ability to have, more often than not I find myself firing two missiles at the same target. I usually do this against high-speed attack jets as it increases my chance of hitting. Just fire off one missile, then wait about 3 to 5 seconds before firing the second. Moving on to the missile itself, the SA-15 is armed with 8 vertically launched 9M331 surface-to-air missiles. These missiles have a max range of 7.46 miles, a maximum overload of 16 G, and can reach speeds up to Mach 2.5. The max range is one of the best at top tier. Speed isn't bad, but it's not the best, while the overload is pretty poor for a top tier missile. Thankfully, the latter is helped a lot by the half-straightening guidance mode. You will still have some troubles hitting high-speed maneuvering targets, which is why I do suggest volleying 2 missiles at a time at these sorts of targets. The missile comes with an 8-meter proximity fuse and an 8-kilogram TNT equivalent warhead, both of which are above average for top-tier SAMs, and means as long as you get the missile close, you're gonna kill your target. Since the missiles are vertically launched before tilting over to go after their targets, there is about a 0.9 mile or 1.5 kilometer minimum engagement range, so any aircraft or helicopter that gets within this will be impossible for you to hit. Another thing about this missile is that the motor leaves a huge smoke trail behind. This makes it a lot easier for planes to spot the missile coming, but personally though, I'd like to see this larger smoke trail added to the other SAMs, as it allows for the plane player to have some counterplay when dodging the missile. For a top tier SAM, this is one of the easiest stock grinds simply because there is nothing you need to research to be effective. You only have the one missile, so you don't need to unlock a better one. Parts and FPE are nice to have, but you shouldn't be taking a lot of fire to begin with. They do come in handy when you need to help some teammates repair, but with the size of the SA-15, you shouldn't be on the front line to begin with. If anything, the engine mods are probably the most important thing to get, as they allow you to move around a bit better, but you'll be fine without them. The SA-15 is powered by an 840 horsepower engine. The vehicle itself comes in weighing at 37 tons, so you'll end up with a power to weight ratio of about 22.7 horsepower per ton. This gives you some pretty good acceleration for getting around the map. The transmission has 4 forward and 4 reverse gears, so you can hit your top speed of 40 miles per hour in either direction. Armor-wise, it's pretty much non-existent. You have 9mm all around, with some areas having some structural steel on top of it, as well as a few internal 5mm bulkheads separating the forward crew compartment from the vertical launch missile cells in the middle of the vehicle. I mean, this armor is just barely enough to stop some 30 cal rounds from 100 meters or more. Any 50 cal or up will just tear right through you, so basically don't get seen. Which can be harder to do than you might think, as this vehicle stands at around 5.1 meters tall with the radar mast unstowed. The SA-15 is equipped with hydropneumatic suspension, so you can raise and lower your height in the vertical direction. No side to side or front and back though. When it comes to playing the SA-15, it comes down to whether you first spawn it or spawn it later on. If you first spawn, you're going to have a much easier time, as you'll be able to lock onto planes or drones as soon as they spawn and before they can climb above you. You just need to have your radar range set to the 19 mile setting. Then it's just waiting until they get within 7.4 miles, and then you can start shooting at them. You can very easily shut down any airplay from the opposing team on your own, but it doesn't hurt to have a few teammates that are also in SAMs. I do suggest trying to move away from the spawn a bit. As someone who plays a lot of CAS, that is the first place I look upon spawning my plane. Ideally, you want to find some spot where you can have some cover from the enemy ground forces while still being able to watch for planes and helicopters with your radar. This is easier said than done on a lot of maps though, due to the SA-15's size. When engaging planes, I prefer to only use the half straightening mode as it's the easiest out of the two to use. As for engaging helicopters, it's best to engage them using the IRST or manually guiding it in yourself, just so you don't set off their RWR with a radar lock. To help out your teammates on the ground, you do get a scout ability, so while waiting for any enemy aircraft to spawn, you can do a little bit of scouting if your position allows it. If you run out of missiles, you're going to be in for a long reload. First, you have to sit on a cap for 80 seconds to get your missiles back, then you have to wait an additional 20 seconds to reload those missiles into your launch cells. The latter time can be cut down to 15 seconds with a fully ace crew, but that still means you'll be useless for around a minute and a half. Unfortunately, you can only reload once you're completely out of missiles, so there is no getting away from that wait time. So if you want to J out after running out of missiles, I'm not going to hold that against you. When using the SA-15, keep in mind it is not capable of firing on the move. There are doors on top of the vertical launch cells that'll close as soon as you start moving, so you will have to come to a complete stop and wait for them to open before firing. Now, if you spawn later on, then you'll still want to try and move out of the spawn if you're able to and find some cover. However, now you'll likely have to contend with planes that are already high above you, making them a lot harder to find and engage. This is just the current balance between SAMs and CAS. If CAS is able to climb above the SAM's radar coverage, they're mostly free to do whatever they want. However, if a SAM spots and engages them before they can get that high up, there's not a whole lot the plane can do. If you do end up getting shot at by any kind of guided weapons, you can lock onto them and engage them to defend yourself. However, be aware that some munitions might not be destroyed by your missiles. I've been able to destroy Vickers, but when I tried to engage a walleye dropped on me by an A7, my missile did nothing to it even though it exploded right next to it. Not sure why that didn't work, so I'm just chalking that one up to getting Gaijined. Moving on to the economy of the vehicle, the Tor M-1 is the Chinese Rank 7 BR 11.0 SAM that can be found below the PGZ-04A and the Chinese SAM line. To unlock the vehicle will require you to gain 390,000 RP and will cost you 1.06 million SL to buy. Basic crew training will cost 300,000 SL. Expert qualification will set you back another 1.06 million SL, and to unlock the ACE qualification will require you to pay either 2.1 thousand GE or grind out 1.14 million RP with the vehicle. To fully spade the vehicle will require you to gain 458,300 RP and pay 466,000 SL. Once fully spaded, the repair cost will be 8,582 SL in realistic battles. This is on the low side for top tier SAMs, so very nice to see. The SA-15 comes with an RP modifier of 1.4 and an SL modifier of 2.38. The RP modifier is below average compared to the other top tier SAMs, while the SL modifier is right in line with those others. The Tor M-1 comes with the usual desert, woodland, and winter camos common on the other top tier Chinese ground vehicles. As of now, it doesn't have access to any unique GE or marketplace skins, so for the time being, if you want something unique, you'll have to go to War Thunder Live to find anything interesting. As usual, I'll leave links to the skins I used in the description, so feel free to go check them out and support their creators. Alright, let's wrap things up with the pros and cons before ending with my final verdict. Starting off with the pros, the Tor M-1 gets access to a powerful radar with plenty of range to pick up planes, drones, and helicopters as soon as they spawn. This is easily the best radar set on any SAM currently in game. Being able to launch and guide 2 missiles at the same time sets the Tor apart from the rest of the competition, as those can only guide 1 missile at a time. The multiple guidance modes also gives you some flexibility when it comes to engaging different types of targets. The half straightening mode in particular makes it much easier engaging planes than trying to use the old line of sight method. I look forward to seeing this feature come to more SAM systems in the future. As for the cons, damn, the Tor is one large vehicle. This makes it hard to find spots to hide in, and when you're moving around, you're likely to be spotted as the enemy would have to be blind otherwise to not see you. One major thing that you lack that a lot of other SAMs get are gunner thermals. This will make it a little harder spotting helicopters that are flying just behind some trees, as sometimes your radar will be able to pick them up, but won't be able to lock onto them. So in those cases where you have to spot them yourself, thermals are a big help. Finally, the biggest downside is definitely the minimum engagement range you have thanks to the way the missiles are launched. If a plane or helicopter gets close to you, there isn't anything you can do about it since you lack a gun. As for my final verdict, there's no doubt in my mind that the Tor M-1 is one of the best, if not the best SAMs in game when it comes to engaging enemy aircraft. While the missiles may not be the best in the game, they are solid enough and get the job done. What really makes this vehicle shine though are its radar, the guidance modes, and the multiple missile launch capability. By first spawning this vehicle, you can just about guarantee your team won't be molested by CAS. It also fills one of the last two gaps in the Chinese top-tier ground lineup alongside the Q5L, finally completing the lineup and making it a pretty good one to play in, a fun one that I've enjoyed. If you've got access to top-tier Chinese vehicles, this SAM is well worth the time to unlock. So what do you guys think of me covering a SAM? This is a vehicle that I've been looking forward to for many years now, so I wanted to cover it once I saw it got added. I figured it would fit into my channel's general theme of covering jets and helicopters, as it counters a lot of the ground attack planes that I've covered before. Going forward, I'll probably cover some more SAMs, but I do want to stay away from covering tanks and IFVs, as I want to stick to a general theme of jets and helicopters for my channel. As usual, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.